Welcome to Backstage with Geoffrey Morrissey. I'm your host, Geoffrey Morrissey. I'm joined today by Caroline Rose, backstage at the Sinclair. Caroline, how are you?
I'm great.
Well, that is wonderful to hear. It is the day after Halloween, which I think is a big deal. What was your favorite Halloween costume as a kid and your favorite Halloween candy?
Oh man, like the favorite costume that I wore?
That you were able to, yeah.
Oh, well, I'll tell you the weirdest one, which I think is probably my favorite because it's the weirdest. But I decided in third grade I was going to be a Titanic passenger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I put on the like white face paint to look dead. And then I didn't think I looked dead enough. I was wearing a little tuxedo as well. So I had a little tuxedo with the little flappy bits on the back. And I was pasty white because I was dead. But it wasn't dead enough, so I put a bullet hole in my forehead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because that makes a lot of sense, you know?
It does. That's how a lot of people went on the Titanic. That's,
This is so terrible.
that is very intense.
So, yeah.
What was the candy that you would always look out for on Halloween, the one that you get excited by?
Oh, I think then and now my favorite candy is the same. It's a Reese's cup.
Oh, same.
Yeah, and my method is also still the same of eating it. I create a hole in the middle and eat all the peanut butter out first, and then I eat the outside.
Wow.
Yeah.
That takes some dedication. I like it.
I'm the same as I was when I was a toddler, so.
Well, there you go. Nice. And then sort of speaking of costumes, I know that your signature thing is red, which everyone likes to make a big deal out of. What was it about the color red that sort of speaks to you that you sort of like?
Well, I mostly just like it. I think the color of, I'm really just going to scare everyone who's listening to this, but my favorite color is the color of blood when you kind of hold it up to the light. I think it's just really beautiful. So I think I've always just been drawn to it, and one day I just decided to get rid of all the other colors in my closet. Except now I'm like not really wearing that much red. You're seeing a side that most people don't get to see.
That'll be my clickbait title right there. And I love the album cover for Loner out on New West Records right now with the cigarettes and the red outfit. Walk me through that, because the minute that I saw it, I'm like, I need to listen to that record, and I feel like that's what it was meant to do.
Oh, that's great. Well, I think it started as just something that I thought would be funny and interesting, and I had done it with my friend who is a photographer in Vermont. He's just fantastic, and we had a bunch of different ideas, like a bunch of weird ideas, and I think he liked that I had all these kooky, strange ideas. And that was one of the last ones that we did. I was just like, oh, I got this new tracksuit, like we should try this one where I'm like an athlete but I'm smoking a bunch of cigarettes and I look like I'm dead to the world, kind of, or indifferent to the world. And we tried it, and we nailed it on an iPhone.
Really?
Yeah, and when it came time to make the record, this was like a couple years ago, everything was done. I was like submitting the record and starting to work in the album art. I had a whole different idea, and I like kind of fulfilled the whole different thing. And my label was like, hated it. Everyone hated it. They were like, you can't use this you can use it. It's your album. You can do whatever you want, but just so you know, it's scary.
Be warned.
I had like made a mask of my own face over my face, so it really scared people, which I thought was hilarious, but it was in hindsight kind of scary. But they saw this photo with the cigarettes, and they're like, oh, you should this is a great photo, like you should use this for the cover. And at first I was like, no, I'm using my original idea, blah blah blah. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this is kind of perfect for the cover. It's like a perfect summation of like my personality and all the songs in the album. And so we ended up recreating it in the same location. It was in my old apartment in Burlington, Vermont, and the same photographer. We had better lighting this time and better, used the good camera. And it came out even better than the first time. So, yeah, that's the story behind it. But it's really just meant to be kind of poking fun at myself, and just like this, like overachieving kind of attitude is unrealistic, I guess.
Totally. And I don't know, this could just be me projecting onto the object, but I always find that cigarettes are the embodiment of loneliness too. So I
Oh,
kinda
I like
having
that.
those
That's
on
great.
there.
That's probably, yeah, it was somewhere in my subconscious too.
Well, there we go. Well, the big narrative around this record, Loner, is that it's different. It's different than the previous one, and it is. But one of the interesting words that came up in, I think it was a Rolling Stone profile, was satire, and sort of like that you were drawn to satire. Do you sort of agree with that? And if so, what made you sort of go in a more satirical route? How were you drawn?
Yeah, thank God that is accurate and
Seriously,
has
yeah.
been disseminated accurately. But I think it's, I think on this album, and I should say that five or plus years passed between writing the first album and the second one, so I almost kind of have to disregard temporarily the first album because I'm kind of doing something that I feel a lot more comfortable with now. So, yeah, I've put that on hold. But I think the satire part of it is part of my humor, and it's the way that I, along with a lot of other people, cope with really serious things. And I think satire can be used as a really powerful tool when you're trying to talk about important issues in your own life. And I think that has become a part of the music because I wanted the music to sound more like my personality. So I think in doing that, I did kind of achieve what I wanted to do and make something unique and something uniquely that sounds like me. But that'll definitely be something that I continue to kind of experiment with and expound on. And yeah, I think there's a big difference though between satire and making a joke of things that are really heavy and being a joke, So
totally.
I try and draw a very distinct line in the sand.
And how do you sort of walk that line? What are some things that you're conscious about with that?
I think not doing too much of the same thing is the most important part of that. I think if the whole album was like Bikini,
Yeah.
it would be a lot different, a lot more of like a joke. Or if I don't know, wore a tracksuit forever, I think that would be more of a joke. And there just comes a point where you have to be like, okay, I did this, I feel good about this, I tackled this, let's move on.
Well, and that was one of the things that I was reading that you said, let me make sure I get the quote right so it's disseminated accurately. It's hard to make an album where it shows all the different sides of you, which, yeah, I mean, to encapsulate a personality in 10, 11 songs is a really difficult thing. So how did you sort of go about that with Loner?
Well, I started out with a lot of songs, and a lot of them, because the album, it took a while to make, and I took a lot of time in between making it and the last one. A lot of the songs ended up being like older by the time I started making it, and some of them were, I had almost just grown up in a way that I was onto something new, and my personality is kind of adapted. And I think the hardest part was taking the older material and being like, okay, how can I make this fresh again? How can this relate to my life now as opposed to what it was 3 years ago or whatever? But I think when you put on an album, and some of my favorites are albums that really transport you and they take you on a journey from start to finish. I think great albums have a beginning, middle, and end, like a story does, like a great story. And I was really, really conscious of that in the flow of the album and the diversity in the songs. So usually what I did and what I still do and what I hope to look for in albums that I listen to is a change of emotion as you're listening. So you might start at a certain point and then it kind of transforms into this other energy, and it takes you on a little journey, which is exciting to me.
One of my favorite songs in the album is the closer, Animal, which deals with such a heavy topic and is such sort of a complex song musically. Walk me through that just in general, how that sort of came from idea to middle to it's now a finished song.
Yeah, well, that one was one of the older ones, actually, and I like I said before, I didn't want to do too much of the same thing to be kind of pigeonhole myself. But that is one of the few songs on it that is really just raw emotion. And I wanted to make sure that part of that was on the album to show that that's a side of me, you know, and I like have human feelings like anyone else and get jealous and that, I mean, the song is pretty much about pure jealousy, just like the feeling of having your heart ripped out of you, and I wanted to evoke something that made you feel primal, so it is more bare and kind of has this like screaming chorus, which is almost like emotional release, I guess. Mm-hmm. But did I answer your question? I don't know where I was going with that.
No, please. I love hearing about it. And I could do this all day, but you have a show to play and family to see, so I'll make this my last question. Who are you listening to right now?
Well, I've been listening to the new Tirza album, like on repeat. Willoughby, my drummer who's sitting right here, he really loves the producer of that album, Mikachu, who has a band called Mikachu and the Shapes, and she produced that album. So I just think that she's a genius and Tirza's a genius, and I really, really like that album. But yeah, we also have been listening to Mitski on repeat, basically. We're obsessed with her. What else have we been listening to? Molly Birch has a great new album out. Marlon Williams we love. Yeah, we met him. Well, I met him at Waterloo at South by this year. He's really nice. I like him a lot.
He is. I remember I interviewed with him, and it was a very windy day in Newport, and my hair just sort of went into a middle part naturally, which was horrifying. And so when we had to take the photo for the publication at the end, he's like, "Why don't you take my hat?" So I have his hat on. He's a very sweet person, and his record is great. Your record, Loner, is wonderful. If you aren't listening to it, stop what you're doing right now. Caroline Rose has joined me today. Caroline, thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming back here. I like your sweatshirt, by the way. It says "No Fun" on it.
Oh, thank you, and I like the jacket, so there we go.